And welcome back, everybody, to the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, BaseLINE Newman. Now, guys, this is kind of the part 2 of the Major League Rugby Draft episode. Last week, we had Nate Curtis as our main guest with Kyle Blazak helping me run the questions, and I got to ask him some questions as well. Now, this week, we got the part 2. Teammates of both Kyle and Nate, please welcome my special guest, Tyler Glave.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ben. It's great to be here. First podcast experience.
Well, welcome to it. So how are you today?
Doing well today. Kind of had a long weekend. Went to a concert this weekend, and then so it's been making the morning sessions for training a little hard still this week.
Sure.
But
Who'd you go see?
We went and saw Kip Moore and Miranda Lambert in Chicago.
Cool.
It was a festival with a bunch of barbecue and craft beer, so it was a good time.
Nice. Now, Tyler, to start things off, you were recently a part of a rugby showcase in Denver. How has training been so far to prepare for the draft?
Training for the draft it's kind of been, I described it as like reawakening a part of myself that I really didn't know if I had anymore. Since this past rugby season ended, I had kind of just gotten swept up in life, I'm working in sales with the Whitecaps. And I had pretty much accepted my desk job life like that. Was already starting to gain weight. Wasn't working out. I had actually gotten injured at the AllStar Tournament to end the season. So I just really hadn't gotten back into anything. So it was a big switch flip. And it was quite a lifestyle adjustment, especially balancing it with work and everything else.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Would you say you're kind of getting adjusted to it now?
Yeah, I've definitely been feeling a lot better now. The showcase itself, I was ready for, but still was kind of, itself a wake-up call and more of a, to keep my head to the grindstone kind of thing like that. But, these last couple weeks is where I've really kind of felt my body, click back into that athlete mode where it really feels like it's moving, going at all cylinders again. For
sure. And, going off of that, before that showcase in Denver, you were also a part of the NCR AllStar Tournament for the Midwest Thunderbirds. Talk to me about that experience.
Yeah, so that was kind of my first, I wouldn't call it professional rugby, but just with CMU and the way our program and how small it is, that was my first big rugby experience. So really eye-opening. I got to meet a lot of great guys. That's the big thing about rugby is there's a big brotherhood with it, even though you're smashing into each other, and almost, in a borderline fist fight for 80 minutes. So that experience was really cool, getting to meet guys from all over the world. Most of Nate and I's team were from Europe or different parts of Africa and things like that. So just getting to learn about them. Their lives, how they got into rugby, and how it all brought us together was really cool.
Very cool. I will agree with you with how small your guys' rugby club is. Because I had a hard time finding some information about you guys for sure, but I think I was able to piece together some good stuff. But going off of that, what else have you been doing really to prepare for the draft, and how do you think it's kind of helped you look like a draft ready prospect?
Some of the biggest things I've been doing to prepare for the draft, first off, was just getting back in shape and things like that for the combine. That was kind of my first opportunity to get noticed and put my name out there. With CMU being so small, it's not like we're getting much coverage of anything. It's not like GMs know Central Michigan rugby as a powerhouse and where to find prospects. So a big thing for me has been that, and then rounding myself as a player. I'm very new to the sport still, so just showcasing all my different skills, I guess, that I could play any position in the forward pack, and then also developing relationships. I've been reaching out to GMs, coaches, things like that, just kind of sharing a little about myself, sharing my game tape, and trying to get myself out there.
We mentioned it in the very beginning, but one of the guests that we had last week, Kyle Blazak, helped me ask Nate questions. But before your guys' time at Central Michigan, you actually played each other. You went to Rockford High School. He was a part of Catholic Central's program. Before obviously becoming teammates, how do you think that relationship kind of helped push you guys both as opponents and as teammates?
Yeah. So actually, I didn't start playing rugby until college.
Really?
I didn't play in high school. I was at every game. I was like the super fan because Nate, my roommate, we were best friends there. Our relationship goes all the way back to middle school, and so I was always there supporting him. But I got to know Kyle a little bit then too, and Nate and Kyle had a good relationship from getting to know each other. So that was actually a big thing that kind of got me into rugby, was just already having so many friends in it and things like that, and then having people like Kyle, who was someone who was knowledgeable and like could teach me a lot.
That's amazing. I mean, diving a little bit deeper into that, you just mentioned how close you and Nate have been for a long time. Mm-hmm. How do you think that relationship has really helped push you to where you are right now as a potential prospect?
Yeah, I mean, without Nate, I wouldn't be here at all with in my rugby career. Like I said, I didn't start playing until college. Nate and I were roommates, and he joined the team along with some of our other buddies, and I mean, they were always busy. They were always gone on weeknights and weekends and things like that. So that's kind of what got me to join. And then once I did join, just having that relationship with Nate, he's always been the kind of friend who's really very supportive. He's going to be your biggest fan, and he's also going to do anything he can to help you and be a great friend that way. So he's always there supporting us. He was always the one that got me to go to the gym when it was, the day after a game or the night after a bar, and I was just trying to roll back over. He was the one with all the rugby knowledge too, and was the one that was really pushing deeper knowledge, not just the surface, like go out there and try to hit someone as hard as I can, like kind of thing, like actually learning the game and developing my skills.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's amazing because obviously I didn't know that you didn't start playing until college, but you went from never playing the game at all to being a draft prospect. Talk to me about that kind of growth over the last 4 to 5 years and how you were able to become such a highly scouted talent based on just 5 years of experience.
Yeah, so in high school, I think what kind of helped me out was I played football, which was just kind of they're much different sports, but the physicality aspect, like I at least had that down. And then actually injuries stopped football, but I wrestled throughout the whole time in high school, and that was actually a big thing that helped me just be physically ready. I was very surprised how many of just the movements and muscles and things like that, like it all transferred really well. So that helped me a lot. And then outside of that, a lot of it was just how fun it was. I mean, just immediately became passionate about it. I was not good when I first started. I started practicing with the team my freshman year late. It was the spring season, my freshman year. So I wasn't really, I was basically a practice player kind of thing like that, learning. Was just all I was a big body, but I couldn't pass the ball. I wasn't a threat running the ball. I didn't know the game well enough and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, and then without having a coach, it was just a lot of teammates coming together. And then a lot of research on my own, watching film, like I had mentioned with Nate, trying to push me to be look deeper into the game, and learn. It was a lot of self-teaching.
For sure.
I kind of call myself like a self-taught rugby player.
Well, what position did you play in football?
Football, I played, I moved around. They moved me to a different position every year. But middle linebacker was what I mainly played. So I kind of felt like that, just that downhill kind of aggressive attitude was what transferred best for me in rugby.
For sure. I'm just looking at your arms, and your arms are massive. So I was just curious if you played, linebacker, tight end, whatever.
Yep, it was linebacker.
You didn't start until your freshman year of college. But what was it about the game that you grew to love?
The biggest part was the social aspect and things like that, and almost the brotherhood that came from it. For my first year of rugby, there were definitely times where I was like, I don't know if I like this. I was still learning and having some frustrations, struggling with getting some playing time, and then also just with some injuries and things like that. So I was considering if it was worth it. And the thing that kept me in it was just how close of relationships you developed with it. And then also kind of like how I had mentioned with the AllStar Tournament, all the people you meet. It's the only sport where after a game, we have a party together, a social. It's the only sport I've ever heard of that really does something like that, so we go from hitting each other as hard as we can to buying each other a beer, and like asking about what classes they took and stuff like that. So that's where it really started with it. And then I've always loved, I've always done contact, just physical sports. That's always what I've been best at and enjoyed the most. So those were the two things that drew me to it.
For sure. And, kind of diving into a little bit deeper into kind of like the after game aspect that you just mentioned. Rugby is described as, a hooligans game played by gentlemen. Mm-hmm. How do you really think that, being a rugby player, how do you think that title of the game really fits?
I mean, yeah, you really see it because it's almost like a personality change, and I call rugby like my biggest stress reliever. It's my best stress ball because you get out there and there aren't a lot of rules, and there's only one referee, so you're pretty much allowed to be a hooligan and do whatever you want to do. But there's so many great guys in the sport and things like that. So, I mean, you get off the field and you get to know people and know how, you could have watched someone, just completely run over someone or be a menace on the field, punching people like that. Then they get off the field and they're the nicest person you've ever met and things like that. So
like we've mentioned before and after, but you didn't start playing rugby till college, but you talked a little bit about how kind of Nate got you into rugby and things like that, but what really made you want to play rugby at Central?
Playing rugby at Central, it kind of goes back to the brotherhood in the group. I became very passionate about it because I was passionate about the people that I was doing it with. I wanted to win, and like it was a very physical game, so you almost felt that like, if you weren't giving it your all, your teammate was going to get hit pretty hard, and maybe get hurt kind of thing like that. And then as it began to grow and we got, as Nate and I and our room, the rest of our apartment roommates that we had grew up, we all stepped into leadership roles in the team. So it really became like our baby. Especially like my resume was coming out of college, mostly rugby things and everything I did for the rugby team. So I just, when you put all that time and effort into it, it makes you care a lot about it.
So the experience that you were able to, gain for yourself during your time with rugby, you were the president of the rugby club. Talk to me a little bit about your role with that and kind of the day-to-day things that you would do as a president.
Yeah, so as the president of the team, one of the main things was I was the point of contact between the team and the school. And just with rugby not being a NCAA sport and kind of things like that, and with it being governed by USA Rugby and National Collegiate Rugby, I just kind of bridged that gap with communication, setting up practice times, games, making sure that we had the proper staff and all those kinds of things. And then from the team aspect, it was a lot of just kind of more leadership and running it as a professional organization because we didn't have boosters or any funding from the school or anything. So, creating a budget, fundraising, recruiting, interviewing and hiring our coach. So there were a lot of different aspects that came from it, and we had an e-board that did a great job with it, but it definitely made you care a lot more, and we had that, extra incentive into it.
For sure. That's really cool because there's not a lot of teams that you see, having to fund their own team or having to, virtually run everything about their own team. You normally see that in the background, but you guys were really able to lead it not only on the field, but on the business side as well.
And kind of thinking about it, it always, now looking back, how weird it was on game days where my first thought wasn't getting ready for the game, stretching, taping, things like that. It was do we have a referee today? Do we have water for both teams? Did everyone fill out their waivers? Are we all going to pass eligibility checks? Things like that. So it definitely, like, game days, there was always a lot swirling around after the game. I had to be the first one at the bar, setting everything up and making sure they were ready for the social. So,
Yeah, I mean, and going off of that, you did graduate with a sports management major at Central, correct?
Yep, correct.
How do you think being able to be president of the rugby team really helps kind of progress you in your major?
Yeah, with my major, I mean, like I had mentioned, it's the biggest part of my resume coming out of college. That was some of my biggest experience, and it gave me a great insight into just because I was involved with so many different aspects of the team, doing everything with it. It gave me great experience and just great insight across everything that you could do with the team. And then just having the leadership experience and the experience talking to the school representatives and things like that was really big for me.
Moving on from that wasn't the only kind of leadership position that you took at Central. We mentioned earlier your love for wrestling. You were also the vice president of the wrestling club. Talk about that experience as well.
Yeah, so that was the kind of first thing I got into when I came to Central, like freshman orientation. I knew I was going to look for the wrestling club, things like that. And then a couple of the guys from the wrestling club were actually, most of them were already on the rugby team. So on top of my roommates trying to get me to play, all those guys I knew too wanted me to play. But that kind of leadership experience is what led me into the rugby leadership experience. I never planned on being president. The fact that I kind of had done the VP, and it was much different just because the two clubs were in very different spots. But yeah, I had never imagined being the leader of a club or anything like that prior to college. So getting that experience there early in my college career really helped set me up for that.
I mean, like I mentioned earlier, there wasn't a lot of information about your guys' careers at Central Michigan. So I guess just in your opinion, what were some of the highs and the lows of your playing career at Central?
Yeah, so when I joined the team we dropped from Division I to Division II the year I joined. So my sophomore year was our first year in Division II. We were in debt as a team. We were asking family members to cut us checks to bail the team out and pay our debts so that we didn't fold. The school was going to cut us, things like that. Found out, previous members of the club were maybe using club funds for things that weren't for the team. So it was a big adjustment. We started very low. And that year, our first year in Division II, we were bad too. And we expected to drop a division and just be good and be better than all the teams because we were coming up from Division I. And we got thrashed that first year. And I was a sub, so I wasn't starting. And there was just a lot of frustration all around there. So that was probably the biggest low. And then one of the biggest highs was exactly a year after that. We took the team from that, and then myself and Nate, and then our other roommate Parker, another roommate Connor, we all kind of stepped into leadership positions. And talent-wise did bring together a really good team then that year. Everything kind of came together and went from last place in the conference, being in debt, to our most profitable year ever that year. We were, we had never made money before and had extra money to spend, and then ended up finishing the year 6-2 and making it to the Sweet 16 and playoffs and making our first ever playoff appearance as a team. So that was definitely kind of like a big pendulum swing of high and low, just right there, a big turnaround in a year.
For sure. Obviously, you spent 3.5 years per se on the rugby team, but how do you think playing with the Chippewas kind of helped prepare you to the position you are in right now?
Yeah, so playing with CMU, the biggest thing that helped me prepare for the draft and just kind of moving on into a professional rugby career was the ability to, I guess that I played every position, my versatility. Sophomore year when I was a sub, I played prop, which was the number, would wear the number 1 jersey, and is usually the biggest guy on the field. I was bigger then. I was probably about 260 then and things like that. And then the next year going and playing number 8, playing 8-man and being smaller, I dropped to 220 pounds and played 8-man and just had to be faster for that. And then this year now switching to another position, playing lock. And then going into the combine, I actually started practicing for another position just so that I had them all under my belt. And I just wanted to show that versatility. That was the biggest thing I think I got out of my college career.
So now, Tyler, like we mentioned, in high school you did wrestling and football and all that, but what made you, once you got to college, want to really pursue rugby over, you did do wrestling a little bit for a club, but why would you want to really pursue rugby over wrestling or football?
Yeah, with wrestling, my original plan had kind of been to maybe make a jump from the club team to the varsity team, things like that, or at least looking into it for a while my freshman year, into just stepping into a walk-on role. And I can't really tell you the reason I chose rugby, I guess. The big thing was the appeal of the friendship group. Again, I know I've kind of beat that like a dead horse, but the social aspect was huge bringing me into it. And then another kind of big part of it was the enjoyability of it. And everyone got to be a ball carrier in rugby too, and that was nothing I had really experienced either. That was fun. So it was just every play someone was tackling someone, every time someone got to carry the ball, the pace of the game. It was just exciting, so it drew me in, and the thing with wrestling was it had ended poorly for me in high school, and I had ended up cutting a bunch of weight and things like that, and made it a non-enjoyable experience, so I think I was ready to move on from that.
For sure. Now, going off of that, you were voted onto the Golf Rugby Report as a top lock and a top number 8 in the nation. Can you kind of talk about the hard work that goes into being recognized on a list like this?
Yeah, the big thing was really developing my skills, especially during COVID. It took a lot of work to keep us all together, to keep practices going, to get a couple guys together and to develop our skills and things like that, because a lot of the skills necessary for lock to develop were scrum skills and things like that, and you can't do that by yourself so much. So that was a big thing. Another part of it was just being open-minded and aggressive with it. I always, no matter what position I was playing, was just always trying to do what was best for the team. I always asked Parker, who was our forwards captain, just put me in whatever position you need to make the team better. And we just went from there, always trying to work hard to make it the forward pack as strong as we could.
Going with that, I will be honest, rugby is still a very new sport to me. I'm not going to make you go through all of them, but, there's 15 different positions on a rugby field. Sometimes there's 7, but could you kind of walk us through some of the different positions on a rugby field and kind of how they differentiate each other?
Yeah, so, I can start with the forwards. That's where all my experience has been. Like I mentioned before, prop, that's 1 in 3. They're normally the largest people on the field, especially in terms of weight-wise, and will be, I almost kind of describe them if you're thinking football, as your tackles. They are just the big and a lot of the drive and power to your forward pack, whether you need someone to make a big tackle or make a big, run on the goal line, those kind of guys. Next would be hooker. That's 2. They make the throw-ins, and during the scrum, they get their name from hooking it back with their foot. Okay. They'll hook the ball back in the scrum with their foot. That's why they're the hookers. A lot of times they're shorter, kind of stockier people. Locks.
Like me.
Yeah. That's actually, and that's kind of been an adjustment for me now, is that's what a lot of times they've build me as is either a prop and wanting me to gain 40 pounds, or just putting me as a hooker, because a lot of props will be 6'3" plus.
Gotcha.
And then your locks, which was what I played this past season, they were number 4 and 5, and they're going to be in the scrum. They'll be in the second row, and they're the main drive. You kind of call them the engine of the scrum. They're going to be the main push there, and then they're also the ones in lineouts that will jump and be the ones lifted. So a lot of times you see those as like the tall guys that look like a tree out there. 6'5" and just, built like a trunk. And then the loose forwards will be flankers. You'll have 7 and 8. Those guys are a lot of times very fast, very athletic. And then an 8-man will just be kind of the prototype, like half forward, half back. Just someone who's pretty quick, but also pretty strong, just good at everything, and just mean.
For sure.
Yeah.
Going off of that, we mentioned it a little bit, but you play a lot of different positions. I mean, prop, lock, number 8, but what would you say is your favorite and why?
Favorite position and why? Yeah. I think the ones I enjoyed playing the most, I enjoyed 8-man the most. It is kind of like that middle linebacker, almost like captain of the forwards. You just kind of have that play calling feel to it. Also, just that defensive minded, aggressive approach, and just what was asked to do of me at that position was what I enjoyed the most and felt like I could excel at the best.
A major part of the forward's role is in a scrum, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've always found a scrum to be one of the more enjoyable things to watch in a rugby match.
Yeah.
But for those that are aware of kind of how it works, like, could you kind of explain what a scrum is, how it happens, and kind of like the importance of it in a match?
Yeah, I can do my best. Yeah. So a scrum occurs when there's a penalty. Most often it'll be a knock, which is when a pass gets dropped and it goes forward. Mm-hmm. And so the SIR will stop play, and it'll be both, they're called packs, forward packs, will get into position, and it'll be the prop, hooker, and prop in front, and then behind him will be the 2 locks and the 2 flanks, and then in the very back will be the 8-man to create almost this kind of V wedge. And then you lock up, and the 9 will roll the ball between them, and it's basically a push, like kind of tug-of-war kind of thing over the ball to get possession. So it's a lot easier to see than explain, and I kind of feel that with a lot of rugby. Like, it's it's hard to explain the rules, and I don't even know all the rules. You just wait for the SIR to tell you you're doing something wrong.
There you go. Fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And, that's the thing, too, is a lot of SIRs... with rugby, it's almost not an exact rule. It's up to the SIR's judgment and what their definition of the rule is. So every kind of SIR will call things different.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you got to get used to it as the game goes on.
For sure. Now, I've always been really interested in kind of getting into the mind of an athlete, but when you're in the game, what goes through your head?
Yeah, so when you're in a rugby game, I mean, that was the biggest switch for me, as I had never been in a go sport, for 80 minutes. Mm-hmm. Wrestling matches are 6 minutes, and football was start and stop.
Yeah.
So just the biggest thing is keeping, for me, that aggressive mindset and keeping it turned on, and that almost just repeating to myself, like, don't stop, because if you stop moving your legs or give up for a second, that's when something bad's going to happen. And then also just, a lot of times just read. Just to get into that kind of rugby physical mindset. Especially to be able to just, 20 times in a row throw your body in front of one of the biggest humans you've ever seen running at you.
Just going full instinct mode.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, obviously, it's no secret that rugby players don't wear any pads. Mm-hmm. Was that ever something that kind of intimidated you when you first started playing?
Before I had started playing, yeah, I was kind of one of those skeptics that was kind of like, oh, you're crazy and things like that a little bit. The more I was around the sport, the more you kind of, I guess, just get used to it, seeing it enough. And then also kind of the big thing is I mean, there's a very specific technique to tackling and being physical in rugby, and a lot of the rules are very specific to prevent, any head injuries or neck injuries,
Right.
kind of things like that. So you learn quickly and pick it up quickly how to protect yourself, the best. And I mean, fell into the category of, trying to be that macho man and do a full football, layout tackle. And you can do it, but you might get lucky a couple times, but you'll eventually pay for it,
Right.
so they all add up.
For sure. No, I mean, obviously rugby is a very physical sport. I mean, it's, a constant back and forth, getting hit left to right for 80 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to be well conditioned in that sport. So how do you really go about making sure that your body is in peak condition for the sport?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I guess I got two of my biggest things is like bulletproofing almost. A lot of the exercises that I do are meant to just make my muscles kind of as healthy and protected as possible. Use them to keep themselves safe, but also my body safe. Kind of use it as armor. And then the next biggest thing is just conditioning of a lot of the little muscles in your body, that you don't think about using for 80 minutes, and cardio. I've never been a big cardio person by any means, and that was the biggest thing too for the combine is with rugby, it is 80 minutes and it's not going to stop. So you have to be able to be a big person that can move fast for 80 minutes. So just varying levels of cardio.
For sure.
The biggest thing.
Kind of moving on from the topic of rugby just for a little bit, you are currently in an internship with the West Michigan Whitecaps. Our minor league team with the Tigers. How has that been going so far, and what do you do there?
Yeah, it's been a life-changing experience at the Whitecaps. I am the kids club coordinator, which is a lot of fun. So I basically sell little mini season ticket plans to kids, and they get a ticket to every Sunday game. Their parents get discounted tickets, and then they get a cool jersey. But then I'm also a group ticket sales and individual ticket salesperson. So my responsibilities with that is anything from selling large groups in our cool hospitality areas and suites to a family just coming out for a day game. And it's been one of the best experiences of my life. I couldn't ask for better coworkers and better support there. So
Very cool. Is this your first kind of internship in the sports industry?
this is my second one.
Second.
So the first one I did was at the Legacy Center in Brighton. And that was a lot of fun. It was more operations there is what I was doing. So here, this was my first office experience.
Moving back into the topic of rugby, rugby is a fairly popular sport globally, I would say. Still kind of growing in the United States, but, obviously you guys are kind of going to the draft for the Major League Rugby in America, but have you guys ever really considered maybe going out to Australia or New Zealand or Europe to play rugby?
I mean, definitely things I've thought about. Don't know if I'm good enough yet. It's definitely another level internationally, and but yeah, I mean, I would love to. That would be a once in a lifetime experience, and kind of too with my thoughts of wanting to work in sports. If I did want to work in rugby. It would be a dream come true to go work in New Zealand or in Europe.
The Major League Rugby draft is August 18. In your opinion, Tyler, what do you bring to a team? What do you bring to the table to really elevate a team?
Yeah, so I think the things that I bring to the table that will help a team improve and accomplish their goals. First off, I'm incredibly passionate and hardworking. This is, if I put my mind to something, it's something that I'm going to wake up every day. First thing I think about, last thing I think about when I go to bed, and, every moment in between, and I'll give you everything I have. I feel like nowhere near where I could be, my potential. Just I've only played for a few years, and even though we did have a awesome coach, he was not a forwards coach or anything, so I've really never had any level of coaching or anything like that in rugby. So I think getting put in a place where I had proper training, proper diet, and proper coaching, I would be really excited and almost like a little scared, I guess, to see where I could go.
For sure.
Yeah.
Going off of that, looking back at your career and everything that you've done in the sport, what is that moment going to be like on draft night, potentially hearing your name being called?
Yeah. I've kind of talked about it with a couple people because I have no idea what to expect. It's not like I was, like a big name, always like a known prospect, things like that. And I know I've put everything I can into it, so I'm very content right now with everything and the journey. I get all giddy and excited thinking about, hearing Nate's name called and then hearing my name called and how cool of an experience, and moment that could be. But just waiting and going to be happy with however it turns out.
For sure. Finally, Tyler, just to wrap things up, what would you say is your ultimate goal in the sport?
My ultimate goal in the sport is just to give everything I have to it and to help rugby grow. I feel like that's kind of a big thing that our community has, is every player is always just trying, especially here in America because it's still growing, is just trying to grow rugby and kind of spread how fun it can be. Anyone can do it, any size. And it's a great, loving, just welcoming community, and that's what I want to do, is just further that.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to draft night and seeing you and Nate's name called.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was great to be here.
Of course. But let's get into the episode for us today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the BaseLINE podcast. Thank you so much to Tyler Glave for coming on and talking about his rugby career. Obviously, this episode is being posted on August 18, the day of the draft. So make sure to tune into that draft and see both Tyler and Nate's name being called today. As always, make sure to go check out Hand Harmony in the description for more great music every single week. And with all that being said, guys, thank you again so much for tuning into this episode of the BaseLINE podcast. I'm your host, Ben Newman, and we'll catch you guys next time.